I think my buddy Matt totaled my BMW. She goes, "Oh my God, is he okay?" And I said, I didn't even ask him. I don't know if he's okay. I think he is because he called me, but my car was not okay. And that's really at this point all that matters. My first car was a BMW 30. It was my mom's car, and she bought it brand new in 1986. And it was a 1985 production year, but it was 1986 model year 325 ES. So I grew up riding around in that car, driving around, and my mom always had it. And I was getting ready to turn 16 years old. My parents are about ready to trade that in, and we had a local family friend that he's a mechanic, did a lot of work for my dad's Jeep. He had a Grand Cherokee at the time and a lot of other things. And he said, like, "Hey, you're gonna get rid of that BMW?" He's like, "Your son's gonna turn 16. You gotta get him a car." He's like, "You're probably gonna get him a crap box, but like, you at least you know the history of the BMW. Just give him the BMW." I loved that car, so I was like, "Yeah, please just give me that." And they did. And it's kind of been history ever since. I've loved V30s since then. I still own that car. It has an S54 swap now, full M Technic 1 kit, and still working on it. Not quite on the road, but I just have a love of V30s. So when I graduated from college, I lived in Buffalo, New York. I worked for a good year up there, and my first real job, made some decent money, and I'm like, I need to buy another E30. So I shopped around, and I looked all over the country. I flew to Minnesota to look at one. Didn't like it. Flew to California twice to look at them. Couldn't find one I wanted. I was very specific what I was looking for. Finally, I found it right down the street in Rochester, New York. It was a 1989 325 IS, all original paint, all numbers matching, black over tan, like fully loaded. It was perfect. Low mileage. It had 92,000 miles when I bought it. Immaculate. When I was looking for my first black E30, now, I was on all the BMW forums, DTM Power back in the day, and E30sport.net, and E30 M3s were like the holy grail then. And the rule at the time was there was a 15 grand rule. You either bought the perfect condition car for 15 grand, or you bought a lesser car and you had to invest up to the 15 grand total to make it perfect. And I remember thinking as a 22-year-old, 15 grand for an E30 M3 was outrageous. No one would ever pay that amount of money for an E30 M3. And the 325 IS was cheaper. And, I had a 325 ES from my parents. So I thought, it's this equivalent car. I like that. That was a huge mistake not to buy an E30 M3 because now they're worth a fortune. You can't touch them. They're great cars, very collectible, great to drive. And with the E30 M3s being untouchable now, it's kind of dragged the whole E30 market up with it, particularly the IS cars. The IS was just an options package. You got an in-car computer, sport seats, spoiler, a little bit sportier suspension, lip in the front, but they made less of them. They only came in coupes. They were only available for certain years, 89, 90, and then 87 with the big bumpers, and 86 was the ES. So it's a sort of a rare car. And 89 is a very collectible version of that. It was the only year that they had the ellipsoid headlights, plastic bumpers, and the pop-out windows. They got rid of the pop-out windows, the projector headlights the next year, but kept the plastic bumpers. A little bit about this car. So this car was owned by a collector in Rochester, New York. He had it for probably the last like 20,000 miles of its ownership. He never drove it in the rain, always took perfect care of it. I have it now. I never drove it in the rain, always kept it inside. So I get it. I drive around Buffalo for a while, move home. I don't drive it much. I want to keep it low mileage in pristine condition. And I'm living in an apartment just outside of Boston. And originally when I moved in, we had unlimited parking. So I had all my cars down there daily, and then that one was just kind of sitting there. And then they changed office managers. And the office manager says, "Hey, I realize you're only paying for one spot. It looks like you got 3 cars down there. You got to get it out." So I look around. My friends Chris and Matt had lived in a different apartment complex who had more availability for parking. So I'm like, "Hey, can I just store this car there? While it's everything's going on, and I'll eventually bring it back to my apartment complex when in 6 months, inevitably, the manager of the complex gets changed again." They say, "Sure, no problem." I bring it over there, park it in the back. give them the keys and say, just in case you need to move it, you should need to move it, but just in case. So over at my friend's place, he called me one day. He's like, hey, my Porsche 911 won't start. He had a 964 at the time. He's like, can I just drive your car to work? And I'm like, all right, fine. It's a bright sunny day. I think it's going to be okay. He drives it to work back, uneventful. About a week later, I'm sitting at work, and I get a call from him, and he's in a panic. And he's like, hey, I think I just totaled your car. And I look outside. It's like a thunderstorm outside. I'm like, good. And like, what car? Like, what could you have possibly got in an accident? And he's like, your E30. And I'm like, you drove my E30 in the rain? Like, what were you thinking? And he's like, yeah, I just needed it for work. And like, it was in front of my car because I took it the other day. So I just decided to take it. He just came around a corner. It was a slight uphill corner. Came around it. The street must have been wet. And I think he just lost the back end of the car. Came around, went up over a curb a little bit and hit a stone wall. So it ripped off the front left suspension, like pushed the wheel up into the quarter panel. Both of the fenders were dented. The hood, the front valence were all crumpled up. And E30s, the front valence of the car is welded to the chassis, which most modern cars aren't like that. So a front end collision is tough on an E30. You have to cut away the front like radiator support and like weld a new one on. Most new cars, that's a bolt-on piece, but E30s it's not. He didn't go through insurance. E30s are really tough with insurance. They have a much higher value than most insurance companies want to really deal with. And he didn't want to deal with it, so he just said, hey, I'll give you some money so you can go out and buy another one. And I was able to go out and buy another one with what he gave me. But it was a great investment now. They bought it right before prices of E30s, non-Ms took off. And it's probably worth about 3 times what I paid for it now. I was in a state of shock. I called my then fiance, she's now my wife, and I said, you'll never guess what happened. And I called her in the middle of the day. She's a teacher. So in the middle of the work day, she's like, this must be an emergency if he's calling. So she picked up. She's like, what happened? I'm like, I think my buddy Matt totaled my BMW. She goes, oh my God, is he okay? And I said, I didn't even ask him. I don't know if he's okay. I think he is because he called me, but my car was not okay. And that's really at this point all that matters. So I'm glad that Matt was okay. Like he was fine, but the car was totaled. I still have it. You know, I bought it back. Well, Matt paid for it, gave me some money. I was able to go out and buy another BMW after a little bit of a search. Found another 1989 325 IS. It's actually a one-of-one car. It was a Euro delivery BMW individual, Cirrus blue over blue interior. It was kind of a unique car. So I might have upgraded a little bit from the transaction, but still would have been nice to have my black car. The crashed one, so I'm using it for parts on the other 2 E30s. The black one had great parts on it, so those are replacing sort of lesser condition parts on the other 2 cars, making them perfect. And values of the E30s keep going up, so even though it's kind of in a wrecked state, it's starting to become worth it to probably fix it. And it won't be a perfect car, but it will be a serviceable car for somebody. They'll be able to drive it and enjoy it, and probably for a lesser price than what a perfect condition one would go for now, which is becoming quite a bit. I am still friends with him. We talk all the time. He was one of our co-drivers on the Cannonball. That was rough for a couple days, though. I didn't really want to speak to him, but we came around. It's okay now.
Premier Financial Services makes it easier and more affordable than you could possibly imagine to own your dream car. Their Simple Lease is one of the most powerful tools in the world of exotic car financing. You get all the benefits like the tax savings and the low payments of a lease with all the additional benefits that you normally find in a traditional finance arrangement. You can build up equity, you can pay it off early, you can trade in and out of cars because you get a very clear and easy to understand amortization table to understand what your payoff will be any month throughout your term. And all the while, the amazing team from Premier Financial Services will be right there to help you along the way. They've been supporters of the VINwiki channel now for 5 years in a row, so we can't thank them enough for that, but mostly we're thankful for the fact that they can help you make it easier than ever to own your dream car. Check them out now.